Sometimes the loneliest child in the room is the one surrounded by the most people. On a chilly Saturday evening in Manhattan, the grand ballroom of the Harrington Children's Foundation shimmered beneath crystal chandeliers and soft golden light. Wealthy donors moved from table to table holding glasses of sparkling water and exchanging polished smiles while a string quartet played quietly near the stage. The event had been designed to celebrate children with special needs, yet hidden beneath the speeches and carefully prepared decorations was a truth nobody wanted to acknowledge. 8-year-old Sophia Romano sat alone at a table near the far corner of the room. Her silver dress was elegant, her dark brown hair carefully braided, and the diamond bracelet on her wrist probably cost more than most families spent on rent in a month. None of those things mattered. Across the ballroom, groups of children laughed together, showing each other drawings, trading stories, and playing small games while waiting for the charity auction to begin. Whenever Sophia looked in their direction, they quickly looked away. Some offered awkward smiles. Most simply pretended not to notice her. It was not cruelty. In many ways, it was worse. It was discomfort. They did not know how to speak to a deaf girl, so they chose not to speak at all. Sophia had become familiar with that silence long ago. She lowered her eyes and traced invisible patterns on the white tablecloth with her fingertips. Nearby, adults occasionally glanced toward her with sympathetic expressions before returning to their conversations. No one approached. No one sat beside her. No one asked her name, standing nearly 30 feet away. Vincent Romano watched everything. Few people in New York commanded more attention than Vincent. At 40 years old, he carried himself with the calm confidence of a man accustomed to responsibility, influence, and difficult decisions. The moment he entered a room, people noticed. Yet tonight his attention was fixed entirely on his daughter. He had seen this scene too many times. New schools, charity events, birthday parties, community gatherings. The outcome was almost always the same. People admired Sophia from a distance. They felt sorry for her. They praised her courage. Then they avoided interacting with her altogether. Vincent's chest tightened as he watched her force a small smile at a passing group of children who never stopped walking. Across the ballroom, another guest had noticed the same thing. Emma Carter balanced a paper plate in one hand while keeping an eye on her 6-year-old son Ethan, who was busy studying a display of colorful artwork near the entrance. Emma had spent years working as a pediatric nurse, and experience had taught her to recognize loneliness long before anyone else noticed it. Her gaze lingered on Sophia. The little girl's posture revealed everything: the practiced smile, the lowered eyes, the quiet resignation. Emma knew that look. She had seen it in hospital rooms and waiting areas countless times. She set her plate down without realizing she had made a decision. Sophia remained focused on the tablecloth until a shadow appeared beside her chair. She looked up cautiously. A woman with kind blue eyes stood there smiling warmly. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Emma gently raised her hands and signed 4 simple words in American Sign Language. "Hi, my name is Emma." Sophia froze. Her eyes widened instantly. The ballroom noise seemed to disappear around her. For the first time that entire evening, someone had not looked at her disability. Someone had spoken directly to her. Sophia stared at Emma for several seconds, as if she could not quite believe what had just happened. Then, slowly, cautiously, she raised her own hands. "Hello?" The response came almost instantly, her movements precise and practiced. Emma smiled wider. It had been years since she used American Sign Language every day. But some things never truly left you. Sophia glanced around the ballroom, almost checking to make sure she was not imagining the moment. Then she signed another question. "You know sign language," Emma nodded. A little. I learned when I was younger. Sophia's eyes brightened. It was a small change, barely noticeable to anyone else, but to Vincent Romano it felt enormous. From across the room, he watched his daughter sit up straighter in her chair. The sadness that had weighed on her face all evening seemed to loosen its grip. Emma pulled out the empty chair beside Sophia and sat down. The two began signing back and forth, slowly at first, then faster as Sophia realized she no longer needed to simplify her thoughts or struggle to make herself understood. For the first time that night, she was having an actual conversation. Nearby guests started noticing. Some glanced toward the corner table with curiosity. Others looked surprised. They had grown accustomed to seeing Sophia isolated at events like this. Seeing her engaged, animated, and smiling felt unfamiliar. A few feet away, Ethan finally wandered over carrying a small program booklet. He stopped beside his mother and looked at Sophia. Without hesitation, Emma signed an introduction. "This is my son, Ethan." Ethan offered a friendly wave. Sophia laughed softly and returned the gesture. Within minutes, the two children were exchanging simple signs, while Emma helped translate whenever necessary. Ethan was fascinated. Sophia was delighted. Neither child seemed concerned about what made the other different. They were simply children discovering a new friend. Vincent felt something shift deep inside him. Over the years, he had hired specialists, therapists, tutors, and consultants. He had spent countless hours searching for ways to make life easier for Sophia. Yet nothing he had arranged had created a reaction like this. No expensive program had produced the genuine excitement he now saw in his daughter's face. Emma was not trying to impress anyone. She was not seeking recognition. She was simply treating Sophia like any other child. Across the ballroom, Sophia suddenly looked toward her father. Their eyes met. For a brief moment, she smiled directly at him. It was not the polite smile she used for photographs or formal events. It was real, warm, unfiltered. Vincent had not seen that smile in longer than he wanted to admit. The sight struck him harder than any business victory ever had. He found himself unable to look away. Sophia immediately turned back toward Emma, eager to continue their conversation. She signed rapidly, telling a story that made Ethan laugh. Emma listened carefully, following every movement. The little corner of the ballroom that had seemed so lonely an hour earlier now felt completely different. It felt alive, and standing among hundreds of guests. Vincent Romano realized that one stranger had accomplished something nobody else had managed in years. She had made his daughter forget what it felt like to be alone. Sophia did not want the evening to end. As the charity program continued and guests returned to their tables, she remained focused on Emma and Ethan, signing question after question with an enthusiasm that seemed impossible compared to the quiet little girl who had been sitting alone less than an hour earlier. She wanted to know where Ethan went to school, what books he liked, whether he enjoyed baseball, and if he had ever visited Central Park in the winter. Ethan answered everything with the complete honesty only children possess, and whenever he struggled to understand a sign, Sophia patiently showed him again until he got it right. Each successful exchange made her smile even more. Emma watched the friendship forming and felt her heart soften. Some connections happened slowly. Others appeared in an instant. This one seemed to belong to the second category, across the ballroom. Vincent remained where he was. Though several business associates had attempted to pull him into conversations, he answered politely when necessary, but his attention kept drifting back toward his daughter. The difference in her was undeniable. Usually, events like this exhausted Sophia. She spent most of them sitting quietly, counting the minutes until she could leave. Tonight, she looked energized, alive. Every few moments, she glanced toward Emma as though afraid she might disappear if she looked away for too long. Vincent knew that feeling. when something precious entered your life unexpectedly. Part of you feared it could vanish just as quickly. Eventually, the master of ceremonies stepped onto the stage and asked everyone to take their seats. The room settled. Sophia reluctantly turned her attention forward, but not before signing something to Emma. "Are you leaving soon?" The question was simple, yet Emma noticed the concern behind it. She smiled gently and signed back. "Not yet." Relief immediately appeared on Sophia's face. During the presentation, Sophia kept sneaking glances toward Emma's table, each time their eyes met. Emma offered a small wave or a reassuring smile. It became a silent promise that she was still there. By the end of the program, donors began gathering their coats and saying their goodbyes. The ballroom slowly emptied. Sophia's shoulders tightened. The evening she had enjoyed so much was ending. She looked down at her hands for several seconds before finally signing a question. "Will I see you again?" Emma hesitated. She had learned long ago never to make promises she could not keep. Before she could answer, Ethan spoke up. "I hope so. You are the coolest person I met tonight." Sophia laughed, covering her mouth as she looked at him. Emma felt herself laughing too. Then she turned back to Sophia and signed honestly, "I would like that." The answer seemed to mean everything. At that exact moment, Vincent Romano made a decision. He had spent years searching for ways to help his daughter feel less alone. Tonight, a woman he had never met had accomplished more in 2 hours than most people managed in years. As Sophia smiled once again, Vincent realized he was no longer wondering who Emma Carter was. He was wondering how soon his daughter would ask to see her again. 3 days later, Emma Carter was back in her normal world. The crystal chandeliers, designer dresses, and luxury ballroom felt very far away compared to the reality of her Tuesday morning. She stood at the nurse's station inside a pediatric clinic on the Upper West Side, reviewing patient charts while balancing a cup of coffee that had already gone cold. The waiting room was full. Phones rang constantly. A printer jammed somewhere down the hall. It was the kind of organized chaos that defined most of her workdays. Yet despite everything demanding her attention, she found herself thinking about a little girl with bright eyes and quick hands. More than once, she caught herself wondering whether Sophia had enjoyed school that week, or whether she had managed to make any new friends after their conversation at the charity event. Emma smiled at the thought before returning to work. By 6 o'clock that evening, she finally arrived home to the small apartment she shared with Ethan. It was comfortable but modest. The furniture did not match perfectly. The kitchen counter had a scratch she kept meaning to repair. Bills were attached to the refrigerator with colorful magnets. Ethan sat at the dining table working on homework while Emma prepared grilled cheese sandwiches and tomato soup for dinner. It was not glamorous, but it was theirs. After dinner, Ethan looked up from his math worksheet. "Do you think Sophia is okay?" he asked suddenly. Emma paused. The question surprised her because she had been wondering the same thing. "I think she is," she replied. Ethan nodded thoughtfully. "I hope she has somebody to talk to." The simple comment lingered in Emma's mind long after Ethan went to bed. Across Manhattan, life looked very different inside Vincent Romano's penthouse overlooking the city skyline. Floor-to-ceiling windows revealed thousands of lights stretching toward the horizon. The home was beautiful, elegant, and quiet. Too quiet. Vincent sat reviewing documents at his desk when he noticed Sophia standing in the doorway. She rarely interrupted him while he worked. He immediately set the papers aside. Sophia stepped forward and began signing. "Have you heard from Emma?" Vincent blinked. The question was direct enough to make him smile. 3 days had passed, yet apparently his daughter had not stopped thinking about her new friend. He signed back carefully. No. Sophia lowered her eyes. For a moment, Vincent saw the familiar disappointment returning. Then she signed another question. Do you think she remembers me? The words landed harder than she realized. Vincent looked at his daughter and understood something important. This was not simply about one pleasant evening. Sophia had spent years being overlooked, avoided, or treated differently. Emma had given her something far more valuable than kindness. She had made her feel seen. Vincent leaned back slightly before answering. Yes. I think she remembers you very well. Sophia smiled at that. A small smile, but genuine. Later that night, after Sophia had gone to bed, Vincent found himself thinking about Emma Carter. Not because she had impressed him, not because she had done anything extraordinary, but because she had changed his daughter's world in the space of a few hours. And for the first time, he found himself wondering what kind of life existed behind that warm smile, that small apartment he imagined, and the woman who somehow carried more kindness than most people carried ambition. The following weekend, Sophia's question finally became impossible to ignore. Vincent was finishing breakfast when she appeared across from him at the dining table with a determined expression. She waited until he lowered his newspaper before signing. Can I see Emma again? Vincent had expected the request eventually. What surprised him was how quickly it came. Sophia rarely pushed for anything. She had spent most of her life adapting to other people's schedules, other people's comfort levels, and other people's limitations. Yet now she sat there waiting for an answer with quiet confidence. Vincent set the newspaper aside completely. Why he signed? Sophia looked almost offended by the question. Because she talks to me. The response was immediate, honest, simple. Vincent could not argue with it. Later that afternoon, Sophia brought up Emma again, then again during dinner. By Monday evening, she had somehow worked Emma into 4 separate conversations. Each time her face brightened. Each time her hands moved faster. It became increasingly obvious that this was not a passing interest. Emma had become important to her, across the city. Emma was finishing another long shift when her phone rang. She glanced at the unfamiliar number and almost ignored it. Almost. Something told her to answer. Hello, she said as she gathered her belongings. A calm male voice responded. Ms. Carter, my name is Vincent Romano. Emma stopped moving. For a brief moment she could not place the name. Then she remembered the ballroom, the elegant event, and the protective father who had never seemed far from Sophia. Mr. Romano, she replied carefully. I hope everything is okay. A slight pause followed. Everything is fine, Vincent said. Actually, I am calling because Sophia has asked about you every day since the event. Emma smiled despite herself. That is very sweet. She would like to see you again. The directness caught her off guard. Emma stepped outside the clinic into the cool evening air. Taxis moved through traffic. Pedestrians hurried past carrying shopping bags and coffee cups. For a moment, she simply listened. I would like that too, she admitted. The relief in Vincent's voice was subtle but noticeable. They agreed to meet the following Saturday at a public park near Central Park where the children could spend time together. When Emma hung up, she found herself smiling all the way home. Saturday arrived with clear skies and mild temperatures. Sophia spotted Emma from nearly 50 yards away and immediately waved both hands above her head. Ethan ran forward at the same time. Within seconds, the 2 children were talking, laughing, and signing as if no time had passed at all. Emma barely had a chance to say hello before Sophia pulled her toward a nearby bench and began sharing stories about school, books, and a drawing project she had completed earlier that week. Vincent watched from a respectful distance. The transformation was impossible to miss. Sophia was happier, more confident, more expressive. As sunlight filtered through the trees and the children laughed together, Vincent realized something neither money nor influence had ever been able to provide. His daughter had finally found someone she genuinely trusted. Over the next several weeks, what began as a single afternoon in the park quietly became part of everyone's routine. Every Saturday, Sophia looked forward to seeing Emma and Ethan with an excitement that was impossible to hide. She started counting down the days on a small calendar in her room, marking each upcoming visit with a bright blue star. Vincent noticed the change immediately. Mornings became easier. School became less stressful. Even Sophia's teachers began mentioning subtle differences. She participated more often in classroom activities. She volunteered answers. She smiled more frequently. The little girl who had spent years standing slightly outside every social circle was slowly stepping into the center of her own life. Emma noticed it too. During one visit, Sophia confidently introduced herself to another deaf child at a community event without any encouragement. During another, she helped Ethan learn new signs and patiently corrected him whenever he mixed them up. Each small victory seemed insignificant on its own, but together they formed something remarkable. Confidence. Real confidence. The kind that could not be purchased or taught through a textbook. One Saturday afternoon, the group met at a family festival near the Hudson River. Children ran between activity booths, while musicians performed nearby. Sophia eagerly signed stories about school projects and books she had recently finished reading. At one point, she stopped in the middle of a sentence and signed something that caught Emma by surprise. "Before I met you, I thought people were afraid of me." Emma's heart tightened. She looked at the little girl carefully before answering. "Some people are afraid of things they do not understand. That does not mean there is anything wrong with you." Sophia studied the response for a moment before nodding slowly. Then she signed something else. "You were not afraid." Emma smiled. "No, I was not." Across the festival grounds, Vincent watched the exchange from several yards away. He could not see every sign clearly, but he recognized the emotions on his daughter's face. Trust, security, happiness. For years he had worried about her future. He worried about friendships that never lasted, about opportunities she might miss, about loneliness becoming something permanent. Yet standing there now, he realized how much of that fear had started disappearing. Later that afternoon, while Sophia and Ethan worked together on an art project, Vincent found himself sitting beside Emma for the first time without the children between them. Their conversation came naturally. They talked about parenting, school schedules, favorite books, and the endless challenges of raising children in New York City. Emma laughed more than she expected. Vincent listened more than he usually did. Neither seemed eager for the conversation to end. As the sun slowly lowered toward the horizon, Sophia looked up from her project and saw the two adults talking. A smile spread across her face. It was not the smile of a child watching strangers. It was the smile of someone witnessing two important parts of her world beginning to connect. And for the first time in many years, Sophia Romano allowed herself to believe that happiness might not be something temporary. It might actually be something that stayed. Summer arrived in New York with bright afternoons and crowded sidewalks, and by then Emma, Ethan, Sophia, and Vincent had settled into a rhythm that felt surprisingly natural. What none of them realized was how much they had begun relying on those weekends together. One Saturday, they attended a large community arts fair held near Bryant Park. Families filled the area, children moved between activity tents, and local artists displayed colorful work beneath rows of white canopies. Sophia was especially excited because several booths featured visual art and interactive exhibits that did not depend on sound. She spent nearly an hour exploring with Ethan while Emma and Vincent followed nearby. Everything felt normal until the crowd suddenly grew much thicker. A popular performer had begun a demonstration near the center of the fair, drawing hundreds of people toward one location. For a few minutes, everyone became distracted. Emma turned to answer a question from Ethan. Vincent greeted someone who recognized him from a business event. When they looked back, Sophia was gone. At first, nobody panicked. The fairgrounds were safe and filled with families. Vincent assumed she had wandered to another nearby booth. Emma believed the same. They began searching calmly, checking the art displays and activity tables she had visited earlier. 5 minutes passed, then 10. The calm confidence started to disappear. Sophia had never wandered off before. Ethan noticed the change immediately. "She would not leave without telling us," he said quietly. Emma agreed. Vincent scanned the crowd again, concern growing heavier with every passing minute. Volunteers were notified. Staff members began helping search. Yet a difficult problem quickly emerged. If someone found Sophia, there was no guarantee they would understand how she communicated. The fair covered several city blocks. Hundreds of people moved through the area. Emma felt her pulse quicken. Then she stopped suddenly. A memory surfaced. A few weeks earlier, Sophia had shown her a sketchbook she carried almost everywhere. Whenever she felt overwhelmed, she liked finding quiet places to draw. Emma immediately turned toward a row of small garden spaces located behind the main exhibits. "I think I know where she might be," she said. Vincent followed without hesitation. They moved quickly past food vendors, display tents, and temporary stages until they reached a quieter section near a public sculpture garden. There, sitting alone on a bench beneath a tree, was Sophia. Relief hit all of them at once. She looked up as they approached, surprised by their expressions. Emma sat beside her first, and gently asked what happened using sign language. Sophia explained that the crowd had become too large, too many people, too much movement. She had felt overwhelmed and stepped away to find a peaceful place to draw. Then she realized she could no longer see anyone she knew. Vincent exhaled slowly, emotion visible on his face. Sophia immediately signed an apology. Emma smiled reassuringly and signed back that everything was okay. The important thing was that she was safe. As Sophia leaned against her father's shoulder and Ethan sat beside her on the bench, Vincent looked at Emma with quiet gratitude. In that moment, he understood something clearly. When everyone else saw a challenge, Emma saw Sophia. She understood not only how she communicated, but how she thought, how she felt, and what she needed. And that realization would stay with him long after the day was over. That evening stayed with Vincent long after everyone returned home. After Sophia went to bed, he stood alone beside the windows of his apartment, looking out across Manhattan as thousands of lights stretched into the distance. The city had always made sense to him. Business made sense. Strategy made sense. Problems could be analyzed, managed, and solved. Yet what Emma Carter had done for his daughter could not be measured that way. He thought about the afternoon at the arts fair. He thought about how quickly Emma understood where Sophia might have gone. More importantly, he thought about why. It was not because she had special resources or years of professional training. It was because she paid attention. She listened. She cared. The realization was both comforting and unsettling. For years, Vincent had carried a quiet burden he rarely admitted even to himself. He loved Sophia more than anything in the world. Yet there had always been moments when he felt powerless. No amount of success could erase every challenge she faced. No achievement could guarantee she would never feel excluded or misunderstood. Watching her grow up had taught him that some of the most important things in life could not be purchased: friendship, belonging, connection, trust. Emma had given Sophia those things naturally, without expecting anything in return. A few days later, Vincent invited Emma and Ethan to join them for lunch at a small family restaurant near Central Park. The atmosphere was relaxed and familiar. Sophia and Ethan immediately disappeared into their own conversation, signing and laughing while they waited for their food. For a while, Vincent and Emma simply watched them. Finally, Vincent broke the silence. "You changed her life." Emma looked surprised. "I do not think that is true." "It is," Vincent replied gently. "Before she met you, she expected people to leave. She expected them to lose interest. She does not expect that anymore." Emma lowered her eyes for a moment. "Sophia did most of the work herself," she said. "She just needed someone willing to meet her where she already was." Vincent sat quietly after hearing that. The answer somehow explained everything. Emma had never tried to fix Sophia. She had never treated her like a problem that needed solving. She simply accepted her exactly as she was. That afternoon, after lunch ended and the children ran ahead toward a nearby fountain, Vincent and Emma walked several steps behind them. The early autumn air felt crisp and comfortable. Leaves drifted across the sidewalk. For the first time, neither of them seemed in a hurry to fill every silence. Eventually, Vincent spoke. "I spent years trying to protect her from disappointment," he said. "Then you came along and taught her confidence instead." Emma smiled softly. "Confidence lasts longer." Vincent laughed quietly. "You are probably right." As they continued walking, he realized something that had been growing inside him for months. Emma had not only changed Sophia's future, she had changed his as well. Somewhere along the way, admiration had become affection, respect had become something deeper, and for the first time in years, the possibility of a different kind of future no longer felt impossible. It felt real. 1 year later, the difference in Sophia Romano was impossible to miss. The shy little girl who once sat alone at crowded events now walked into rooms with confidence. She had friends she talked with regularly. She participated in school activities. She even helped teach basic American Sign Language during a community inclusion program that her school organized each semester. Her teachers often spoke about her leadership, her kindness, and the way she encouraged other children who felt left out. Whenever anyone asked what had changed, Sophia always gave the same answer. "Someone finally talked to me." On a bright spring afternoon, family and friends gathered at a small celebration in Central Park. The trees were full of color, children played across open lawns, and the city seemed unusually peaceful. Ethan was now one of Sophia's closest friends, and the two spent most of the afternoon laughing, signing, and competing in harmless games. Nearby, Emma watched them with a smile that carried a year of memories. She remembered the lonely little girl sitting by herself at a ballroom table. She remembered the first conversation, the first laugh, the first moment of trust. None of them had realized how much that single evening would change their lives. Vincent stood beside her, watching the children as well. Over the past year, the connection between them had grown naturally. There had been no grand gestures, no dramatic moments, just hundreds of small choices, shared meals, weekend outings, school events, long conversations, quiet support during difficult days. They had become part of each other's lives so gradually that neither could identify the exact moment when friendship became something more. Looking back, that felt appropriate. The strongest things often grew slowly. As the afternoon continued, Sophia walked over carrying a framed photograph. Emma immediately recognized it. It was a picture from the charity event where they first met. Sophia had kept it all this time. The young girl smiled before raising her hands. Everyone nearby fell silent as she began signing. A year ago, I thought people saw what was different about me before they saw me. Then I met Emma. She taught me that the right people see your heart first. Emma felt tears gather in her eyes. Sophia continued. She became my friend when nobody else knew how. Ethan became my friend too. Then our families became one family. Vincent swallowed hard as he watched his daughter. Sophia turned toward Emma and signed one final sentence. Thank you for finding me before I knew I was lost. Emma stepped forward and wrapped her in a hug. For a moment, nobody spoke. Nobody needed to. The answer was already visible in every smile, every shared glance, and every happy memory they had created together. Sometimes a family begins with a promise. Sometimes it begins with years of history. And sometimes it begins with 4 simple words spoken to a lonely child who needed a friend. Under the warm spring sunlight, surrounded by the people she loved most, Sophia no longer looked like the girl who had once stood alone. She looked exactly where she belonged,